Hello, and welcome to Small Business 21st Century and today's segment of Build Your Difference. I'm your host, Pierre Walters, and we have an exciting show for you today. Our guests are part of a multi-award winning play that's opening right here in the DMV area. The play is called The Meeting, and it's written by Jeff Stetson and directed by Dr. Percy Thomas. It's a 1987 American play that depicts an imaginary meeting of two of the most important men of modern times, Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The play won a Louis B. Mayer Award and 8 1987 NAACP Theater Awards. The play has been performed throughout Europe and right here in the United States. So please, welcome returning guest and the artistic director of the amazing theater, Dr. Percy Thomas, whose performing arts career spans more than 30 years. He's the director of this award-winning play. And next, we want to welcome a multi-talented actor whose accomplishments extend to the stage, film, and the world of music. He studied at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, where he honed his skills at the prestigious Stella Adler Studio of Acting in New York City. He is currently studying under drama professor Vera Katz of Howard University's School of Fine Arts. He is currently portraying Malcolm X in Amazing Theater's production of The Meeting. I want to welcome Mr. Adam Douglas Vincent to the show. And now, our next guest is a New Jersey native and Georgetown University alum. She just earned an MSML from Western Governors University. She was heavily involved in the Black Theater Ensemble at Georgetown, and she also studied at the Academy of Dramatic Arts, the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City. In her time with Amazing Theater, she has taken on a wide variety of roles, including actor, sound and light tech, stage manager, and more. So please welcome to our studio, the incredible theater manager, Jennifer Jones. And last, but certainly not least, yours truly, I'm going to be taking on the role of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I'm honored. But with that said, Dr. Percy, welcome to the show. I'd like to start with you.
Well, it's good to see you again. Yes.
I want to know what made you decide to take on this particular production?
Well, it's the nature of the time we live in today and the challenges of racial animus that still exist in our nation. And so when I had an opportunity to look at Dr. Martin Luther King's philosophy and Malcolm X's philosophy, I kind of liken it to the Democratic and the Republican challenges that we have in our society, where people are at odds. They don't really understand each other. And if this play could do anything, it could bring about unity. And that was my challenge.
Wow, I mean, that is an incredible vision for this play, this production at this time in our country's history. Do you believe that this play has a compelling message for Americans right here in 2024?
Yes.
And what do you think that message
Unity.
Unity.
Let's figure out a way to get along. Mm-hmm. We all have differences, but let's not let our differences divide us. Mm-hmm. Let's not let our differences put us in a hierarchical or a supremacy position over each other. Let's get together and work it out. Let's sit down and communicate.
Now you're saying unity, and I am following you. But the thing is, most people know Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as Black civil rights leaders, and so some might think that this play might be specifically for Black unity, but you're saying no, this is about unity for everyone, all Americans. Can you delve a little bit more into that, and whether or not this play is primarily for a Black audience or a wider audience?
Well, I'll put it this way, Pierre. I was involved in this whole civil rights movement during the 60s. I'm a child of Jim Crow, and I saw the contention between folks, white and black. And the only thing that I could see that would bring us together is to come together and talk about our differences and get them resolved. That was what I really focused on.
Okay.
And now this play has two men that had contention between them coming together in a kind of complementary situation where neither one had power over the other, to find out that they were closely alike, similar. And that's what brought them together, that understanding there. Now, this is a fictitious play, but this is what would have happened if Dr. King and Malcolm X could have come together at that time. We'd be in a very different place in our country today.
Wow, that's bold. That is something to really think about. And I think we don't have opportunities to explore what would have happened if those two great leaders got together and how that might have actually impacted the course of history. I'd like to ask you, Jennifer, as the theater manager, you also decided to take on this production. You decided to bring this production to an audience right here in the DMV. What went into your decision? Why did you decide to be a part of this and to produce this show?
I think it's an important story to tell. It's not just a story of this historical moment that's a fictional period of story of a meeting of two people that were very important in our history, but a lot of the dialogue in the play are rooted in these individuals' stories,
Right.
their philosophies, how they went about their fight for civil rights, what their thoughts were. So I thought it was an important story to tell in the context that our history is being whitewashed and overlooked. So I think telling a story like this is important in this day and time to carry forward the message that there is the possibility for unity.
Yeah.
When it seems to be this very different ideas on how to get to the point that we all want, which is a better America.
We're in a very divisive time right now. I mean, we constantly hear partisan, bipartisan.
Yes.
I mean, just such polar opposites when it comes to perspectives on social issues and on civil rights.
Yes.
So I see what you're saying, and it's so interesting to think that this thought experiment of bringing these two great thinkers into the same room and hearing how they, in a non-confrontational way, how they discuss these issues, how that has ramifications for all of us. I'd like to ask you, Adam, as an actor, as you're playing Malcolm X. Okay, so I want to know, because that could be a very challenging role. How did you feel when you heard the news that you were going to be playing Malcolm X?
Ooh, I mean, I was just humbled and honored that, Percy saw something and saw potential, and it had been a while since I'd been on the stage, so I was a little nervous, but how could you say no? You can't. This man he's one of the most legendary Black men to live, and he has a larger than life persona, but he was a man, and the goal is to be able to communicate that in this play. So yeah, I was very humbled, honored, and honestly, just thanking God. It came at the right time. Yeah.
How do you even begin to take on a challenge like this? Do you have maybe a secret you can share with us? Maybe a little bit of your process. Just how did you begin to sort of crack the shell that is the psyche, the larger than life shoes of Malcolm X?
Yeah. Well, first off, I have a lot of family who grew up with Malcolm, who, lived during his time period. So, communicating with them about it, talking to them about how they felt about him, how he affected them coming up. I have to understand the nuances. I'm from a different generation. I'm a millennial. I wasn't even alive when, King and Malcolm X were around.
Let me just say, I see you laughing, Dr. Percy. Well, he was alive.
Absolutely. Malcolm died in 1964.
Okay.
And Dr. King died in 1968. So, I was finishing up college, in 1965. And so it makes me laugh when I think of all the work he has to do to catch up, because there's more about Malcolm and Dr. King that's in the books that was happening back then.
Yeah.
So
it must be just an incredible challenge to know that you're going to play this role. You want to do it justice, but also at the same time, we got to mount a production.
Yeah.
Right? Like the realities of putting on a play.
I have a question for you. You're playing Dr. King now.
Yes.
Talk about a powerful role. Talk to the audience about that.
Okay, you know what? That is a good point. I gotta say, first of all, just being cast as Dr. King, what an honor. And when you first offered me that role, I was a little shocked. I was a little stunned, and I thought, really? I don't know that I could do that justice. But that's the thing that I kind of learned. You know what? If you feel that way, if you have that little feeling of fear, that actually means you probably should lean in that direction.
Yes.
And maybe there's a growth opportunity there. And it absolutely has been a stretch for me to figure out how to inhabit Dr. King and how to portray him in a way that's accurate and satisfying to people.
You amazed me at the first rehearsal when you came in with his dialect and his lyrical sound. I mean, I think we all in the rehearsal hall was like, whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was, so you've been doing some studying.
Yeah, I have. Thank you. And actually, that's really what it is, right? Just a lot of studying, right?
Right.
Okay, listen, we got more coming up with these incredible artists, these incredible individuals, producers, actors, right here at Amazing Theater. And I can't wait to talk more about the show that you could check out if you want to learn more, amazingtheater.org.com or .org. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to have more with this incredible group of people. Stay with us.
We cannot approve the loan until your wife goes back to work. I'm sorry.
Housing discrimination isn't always obvious or straightforward, but it is against the law. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, protects your rights to equal opportunity in housing.
If you've experienced housing discrimination, HUD can help. They can pursue compensation for your injuries and protect your equal opportunity to housing free of discrimination.
And welcome back. You're watching Small Business 21st Century in today's segment of Build Your Difference with my special guest, Artistic Director Dr. Percy Thomas, actor Adam Douglas Vinson, and theater manager Miss Jennifer Jones of the Amazing Theater Company's upcoming production of The Meeting. Now, prior to the break, we were just talking about how we are approaching this project artistically. Adam, you shared a little bit about how you felt. I shared a little bit about how I felt just receiving the role and the immense weight of taking on Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, this is heavyweight stuff. I want to know, how did you just, and you don't, tell us as much as you feel comfortable telling us, how did you decide on these two crazy actors for this role, for these roles?
Well, I met Pierre. I met you, sir, online, backstage or something. I submitted to, and your face showed up, and I called you up.
I remember that.
And I got you to do Sellout.
Yeah.
And I have been a fan of yours ever since. You are a talented person. And so when, we produced this play maybe 2 years ago with a whole nother cast, and we're back by popular demand for this show. And the first person I thought, I said, I know somebody that looks like Dr. King, that favors Dr. King, and has a wonderful personality, and I think that can carry a show with this kind of depth and character. And your name came up. And so you didn't know, I've gone to see you in about 3 plays since then. And I was sizing you up.
Oh boy.
I was sizing you up. And you have such variation and differences that you bring to a character. And I knew you would study it and you would go deep. So that's why I selected you. And you have not disappointed me. I had some choices of other people to play Malcolm X. And I looked at them. And I really wanted someone that would fit the vision that I had in my mind for Malcolm X. I wanted someone with Malcolm's stature, and I wanted someone with Malcolm's eyes, and I wanted someone with Malcolm's red hair. He did not have red hair, so. But this young man.
They didn't teach you that over in acting school?
So Adam came to my attention. He had come to some of our shows. I met him in Annapolis when he came to a show, and I kept him in my Rolodex. And so when the opportunity came, I called him up. I told him how hard this task was, and he said he was up for it.
Wow.
And I knew I was putting him together with a scene partner, and I knew with you and him together we could get there. And then the really clinker for me was I started out with another stage manager, and I couldn't do this show without a stage manager. That's a part of the process that every director needs, a really good stage manager. Not only a stage manager that can put the props and stuff in place, but a stage manager that has an eye for theatrical work that can also assist the director. And that's why I got I call her my daughter, like I'm gonna call you one day my son, Jennifer, involved, And so that was my process. I was looking for 2 specific people. Now, normally my process would be to go through an audition and do a lot of stuff, but I was pretty sure of the people I had in mind would work. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, we are all so grateful that you made those decisions. And it is a pleasure to work with you again, Jennifer, on this project. I know you mentioned that when we first worked together was on Sellout, and you and I shared the stage.
That's correct.
On Sellout. So what a wonderful opportunity to work with you again closely.
Absolutely.
You're also a director yourself, as well as a producer.
And a playwright.
And a playwright. And a playwright. I mean, just load it on, whatever, like all the other things. But you're also a fine actress.
Thank you.
And so it's just wonderful that we're all a part of this upcoming production.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I wanna take a moment and just talk a little bit about just the role of Black theater. Okay, because really we're sitting here on the stage, and as a collective, we are representing Black theater. The subject matter of this play is poignant. We're all sort of bringing a very diverse set of backgrounds to this project. But why is it that Black theater is so important and so necessary, even today in 2024? I'm opening the floor, please.
I'll
Jennifer.
start. I touched on it a little bit in the previous segment about the ability for us to take ownership of our stories, not just historical stories, but also current stories, because our stories are not being told in an authentic way. When we take ownership of telling our stories, I think it makes it that much more poignant. Being able to have someone of any background have the ability to take a look at the stories that we tell, that we decide to tell on the stage for Amazing Theater, are so, we receive so many positive comments every time we bring a show to the stage. And I think it'll be no different when the meeting hits the stage again. And as he said, it's backed by popular demand, because this story is so powerful and so meaty. So I think that's one thing that's important, and that's ownership of the ability to tell our stories.
Ownership, the ability to own that narrative.
To own the narrative of our stories.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And the fact that Black theaters in this country has been on the decline because of lack of funding and resources. But the reason why I got into theater was to bring about a concept called edutainment.
Okay.
Because I don't think the history of Black people has been told authentically in America. And that was made clear to me by a man that became a good friend of mine, because I did his play off Broadway, produced it in Baltimore, directed it in Baltimore, and took it to the Richard Allen Center for Cultural and Arts in the 70s. And that was Mr. James Baldwin.
My word.
And James Baldwin said to me, the reason why he writes and the reason why he tells his stories authentically and he does not deviate from it is because the truth about Black history and culture must be told and sustained. And from that point, that's why I do it. I have been doing it, and I push so hard for equity in funding, because if you don't have a place to tell your stories, it's very difficult. You've seen our little 40-seat theater. We had a 200-seat theater. The county took it down for good reasons, probably, but we could not find another place. So we are located in a historical building built in 1906 as a place for Black folks to gather because they couldn't gather anyplace else.
Wow.
And we must tell these stories, because today people like millennials, they don't have the benefit of that experience of segregation and oppression and discrimination, which has gone underground now. And so it is really important that all over this nation that Black theater is supported. It's very important.
Yeah.
I saw this morning on MSNBC a play on Broadway now about the suffragettes. Most people don't even know that women had to fight and battle for their own rights. Black people have had to battle and fight for their own rights. And so the only way we can sustain this is tell these stories and keep them alive. And I thank God that you have the talent to convey that. Adam has the talent. Jennifer has the talent. And at Amazing Theater, we are a teaching theater. Many of our actors have never acted before. We take them, put them on stage, and then, such as Emmanuel Carey and Paul Jerry, they're out now doing film and doing work in the industry. It's very important. You are an embodiment of it right here in this position. We could not be here if you were not here. We may not. Let me revise that. We may not be here if you were not here.
Right.
So you provided an opportunity to hear us.
Right. I absolutely appreciate that, but also I honor and totally in line or aligned with this vision, of why we need to own our stories and continue to bring these stories to the public. I want to just bring you in on this, Adam, if you don't mind. Just as a performer, also as a millennial, just real briefly, tell me just how is this impacting you and the need and you being a part of this and such a story, and then tell me what's going on in your mind.
I mean, for me, it was honestly really profound. It felt like when this opportunity came along, felt like the right time, the right role. I'm 34. I'm not as old as Malcolm, but there's so much that I can relate to, in terms of, when he was a young man, he was in school with a lot of people that didn't look like him. They told him that he wouldn't, amount to anything, and obviously he proved all of that wrong. He lived in New York for a while. I was in New York for a while, so I could identify with that kind of lifestyle, like, just rise and grind all the time. And so there was just a lot of things that I felt like I could relate to Malcolm on. And the things that I couldn't, I knew that I could learn about. I knew that I could just expose myself to. And, we all have different things, trauma, different things. So I try to draw on things that I've been through that might not be the same, but can be used to channel that energy. Because this man was a very weathered man. He'd been through a lot at a young age. And
let me just jump in here and just say you really are doing an incredible job. And I think what you bring to the role is unique, and only you could bring that.
Absolutely.
It's a real blessing to work with all of you on this project. I'm so glad to have you guys on the show to talk about this. And it's that time again. We don't have enough time on these segments. But if you have any questions about today's segment, I want you to see the information scrolling below. You've been watching Small Business 21st Century in today's segment of Build Your Difference. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.